I'm sure you have lots of questions swirling in your mind after watching that. I'm going to start with a few of my own, and then we'll, throughout the audience, eventually we'll have a couple of roving mics around. But while you formulate your thoughts, I'm going to get the conversation started. Bernhard, I want to start by asking, this film, it seems like a kind of surreal, almost dystopian scenario, but it's based in a real world phenomenon, actually. That's based in Japan, isn't it? What can you tell us about that and how that kind of started the inspiration for this film?
Yes, indeed. These rent-a-friend agencies really exist in Japan. So they have been founded for over 2 decades ago. And they have been founded because of the big isolation and loneliness there in society. So people who don't have anybody in their lives can rent someone to go for a coffee, go for a walk together. And soon there have been other reasons why people rented someone. And these are better self-presentation, manipulation, hiding lies, showing off power. And these are actually the reasons why these agencies would work in our Western world as well, unfortunately. I mean, if we take a look at social media, everybody's presenting themselves in the best manner. And we are living in a society where people are also not really allowed to fail anymore. And it is interesting, when I went there, I met people working at these agencies, and of course I got so many insights in this job. And I met a man working at this agency who told me, because of his odd job, being someone else every day, he's got the problem of not knowing how to be himself anymore. And that's when I built this satirical story around this character.
It feels, like a very specific scenario in some ways, and in other ways completely kind of universally relatable, I think. Is there a bit of you in Matthias? Have you ever wondered kind of who you are and had doubts about that?
Well, thankfully it's not autobiographical. But still, I think there's a bit of Matthias in all of us. We are all taking on roles every day somehow. And I think this is even okay if you're not the exact same person you are as in your job and when you're with your family. But as soon as you're being someone else when you're with this group of friends and being someone else when you're with the other group of friends, just to be liked by these or the other ones, then I think it's becoming a problem. And yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about. And we are not that far away from, in our Western world, from these agencies as well, because there are already international agencies who are operating. I know that they exist. You can rent friends in Austria, yeah. And I'm 100% sure that these agencies, the international ones, that you can already rent people in London as well. Yeah. So yeah, for the Austrian Film Festival, you can rent many friends the next days to have full cinemas here.
For all we know, some of you are out there right now. Obviously, as you were just saying, this is a story that could play out kind of anywhere at any time. But is there something about the film that captures something particularly Austrian, or about kind of Austrian society at this moment in time?
Well, for me it was important to tell a story that's kind of universally applicable, but still, as I am Austrian, of course there is always something Austrian and will always something Austrian be in the films I make. I wouldn't say that my handwriting is completely typical Austrian filmmaking. That arises the question, what is typical Austrian filmmaking? I once asked the filmmaker, international one at a festival, what he thinks of Austrian film, and he told me, yeah, he loves them, but always when he walks out of the cinema, he's depressed for 3 days. So yeah, that's the kind of filmmaking we all know from international festivals, I think, from Austria, and the films I grew up with, of course. But filmmaking from Austria changes a lot, and you will see that over the next days as well with the films playing here. And I tend to have a very positive and optimistic view and some warmth towards my character. It's not a cynical humor. So, but still, in my youth, I was inspired by Scandinavian cinema. I discovered the films of Kaurismäki, and I just adored them. And I thought, okay, that's a filmmaker where I want to watch all of his films. And then together, actually, with British black comedy, I loved Blackadder and these things. So yeah, that's another point that inspired me. And I'd say together with my very Austrian sense for tragedy, that handwriting came together.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned Kaurismäki, because he is so kind of distinctive at blending that sense of almost kind of farcical comedy with this deep sense of melancholy that I think you also get in Peacock. I mean, as you were kind of dreaming up this story and formulating the script, did you always see it as a comedy first and foremost?
Yes, I did. Like I said, I'm looking at life with optimism, but also always with humor. I think it's very important that, especially in times like these, that we can laugh about ourselves, but also I think the genre of satire is really interesting because you can talk about important topics and make people laugh at the same time. And I think in times like these, we really need to keep our optimism. And it's not that we have to laugh about everything that's going on, because sometimes there's really nothing left to laugh about. But I think we need to keep positive, and we cannot give up. And that's how I see life, and that's why I wanted to make a film like this.
Do you see it as an optimistic film overall? I mean, in that last scene, are we supposed to be in Matthias's shoes, just rebelling against the world around us?
Well, I think it is very, very important for all of us to stay authentic and to stay true to ourselves and not just do what society expects us to. And if it is the end is open, you can interpret it different ways. And I think I love to leave things open in general. So I think that's up to all of you how you interpret that end. But leaving things open, I just love not to give answers. And also when I leave things open, I also don't make these decisions for myself. So, for example, did the dog die because it was somehow Johann's play, or did he just fall into the pool, or is Ina rented or not? We could do a poll now. But I think to make both possibilities plausible, it is very, very important to make both ideas work, either one or the other. And for example, with Ina, in 2 scenes, I directed her as you're rented, just like him. You're professional, you come from another country, and you're there, and another rent-a-friend agency, so of course you two don't know each other. And in 2 other scenes, I directed her as you're definitely not rented, so what does this guy even want from you? And I think by doing it this way, it makes it plausible in the end.
Yeah. The film is built around such an extraordinary performance by Albrecht Schuch, who I think a lot of people in the audience may remember from All Quiet on the Western Front 2 years ago, for which he got a BAFTA nomination, and obviously a very big star in Germany, and I think about to be even bigger worldwide. How did you settle on him, and how did the casting of him kind of shape the eventual kind of character of Matthias?
He really is wonderful. He's wonderful to work with also, and that's how I want to work with nice people. And he's such a professional actor. So we went there very classical. We did a casting. Before that, we met the night before and we talked about the script. It was actually very bizarre because he came to Vienna and I booked a table at the restaurant, not remembering that you eat from the same plate. It was a 5-course menu, and I just this potential main actor of my film. We were sharing food from the same plate, and we've just met before. It was exactly like a scene in my film. But the next day we did a casting. He was wonderful, and then we started to work in preparation on all these small screws. So I mean, in the film he just looks a lot of that time. So what does this look in that moment mean? Is he being lost because he doesn't know what happens right here? Is he lost because he doesn't know how to react? Or is he lost because he doesn't know how to get out of all of this again? And also, what's special about Matthias is that he's a passive main character. So the main character of a film, also called the hero, is not a hero in his private life. And in his job, he's always portraying and playing a hero, and a quality that we searched for during casting and during our thought process of who we could cast was that you really want to follow a passive main character over the course of more than 90 minutes. And with Albrecht, it's exactly like that. I think in all his previous projects, I was so close, and I really, really wanted to watch him and follow his characters, and that's exactly what we needed. So that, and on the other side, he's often played hero roles in his films, and Matthias plays the hero, like I said, during his roles, and I always also love it when I've never seen an actor in some kind of role, so this passiveness, I've never seen Albrecht do that before, and also I've never seen him do comedy, so that's what interested me.
I'm very interested in what you say about him being a passive protagonist, which is unusual. How challenging is that to write as a filmmaker?
It is, because constantly, you try to, we have to follow this person, there needs to be an arch, but it cannot be too big because it's passive. And a very important part of this process was to kind of point out that it's not that Matthias has no emotions at all. It's just that they are hidden a few layers underneath. And Albrecht always put it like they're at a parking lot -5, and I think that's what's important, because when I met this person in Japan, I was talking to him, and he told me because before his assignments he closes down emotionally to not get attached whenever he plays a father, a son, a partner. It's a bit like a doctor who's used to seeing blood and bad injuries, the same with emotions for Matthias. And I think the big main difference also to being an actor on stage or on set is that everybody around him, nobody around him except his client knows that that's an act, that it's not real. Because, if Bernhard Wenger was sitting here and the real Bernhard Wenger would be in Austria writing his next project right now, you would not know, and you would not expect that I sent a doppelganger. So that's what I found really interesting about this character.
I like this element of uncertainty you've brought to this Q&A now. It's a bit of additional tension. I think, perhaps we haven't stressed enough in introducing this film that it's your first feature, which it's so extraordinarily accomplished and polished and complex for a first film. How hard was it to get off the ground in the first place? And can you tell us a bit about the process of bringing it to the screen?
It's a very ambitious project for a first feature film, and at some points I questioned myself, why didn't I just write the story with 4 people in one room? But on the other side, I didn't have an easy idea, so I went for this one. But I think it was possible by working with people I've worked together with on the short films before, the DOP, the editor, the sound engineer, the sound designer. I've worked with all of them before, and then on the other side we had people who are in the industry for a long time, have been in the industry for a long time, and also very precise preparation. Yeah. So I am not a director who improvises a lot or you know, works with actors that improvise a lot. Actually, my DOP and I, we've found a way of work, how we prepare for a film. We did it with the short films, and we said, okay, we're gonna do this with the feature film as well, and it will sound absurd to producers and everybody, but we always shot the short films before once with a small camera. And we did that with the feature film as well. We shot the whole feature film once with a small camera, with myself standing in front of the camera with one or two colleagues, just to stage the whole film, to know all the camera angles, to know when we want the camera movement and all these things. So it began as a very technical idea. But on the other side, when I act myself, and it's a very interesting edit, so maybe we submit that next year. When I do that myself, I get a great sense for the emotions of the characters. I get a sense of, do the dialogues feel real, and where do I still have to work on something? And even these very small things, like does a character walk from this side to a table, or does it feel more natural to walk from the other side on the table? And that spares so much time on set when you already know that and when you've already done it once. So on set, it's really that my DOP and I, we don't talk that much, because we say, okay, if scene 5-7, he works with camera and lights, and I have more time to rehearse with the actors and actresses. And yeah, that made it possible to shoot this film in 29 shooting days, which is really not a lot. For 30 locations, and out of these 30 locations and 29 days, we were 8 days at the house and 3 days at the office, so we constantly moved from one location to the other on every other day. And we had 80 or even 90 actors and actresses in the end, so it was, yeah, a big challenge.
Yeah, remarkable. I'd have guessed many, many more days. You've all heard a lot from me tonight so far. I'm going to throw it out to the audience now, so please raise your hand. First, the gentleman in the third row here, yes.
Bernhard, first went into it cold, loved it. I mean, I love the dynamic of the characters. The observation I have is that I think Matthias is a catalyst character, because he actually, when you know what he does with Vera and she leaves Johan. And also as well, at the very end when he sort of does, the surprising art thing. So I think his character and his conflict is influence. So there's action and consequences, cause and effect. My question's about the visual influences. What's interesting is that when I saw in one of the cases, the house reminded me a bit of Mr. Alexander's house in Clockwork Orange. So I'm just curious to know, when you were working with your DOP, what sort of visual influences, certainly from personal ones, your influences, not film it, but also generally?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I'd say visually there are a lot of influences from photographs, and so, for instance, I once saw this photograph of a burning golf cart, and I thought, okay, that's perfect for that film. It's such a perfect metaphor for society. And then, of course, we watch different films, and these films might be very different from our film, but for example, there's a film called The Farewell by Lulu Wang. It's a pretty recent film, I think.
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Yeah. And we love that it's a film. There's so much going on in this film, and there's so many characters. And still, you sometimes, take a step back and watch the characters, and you look at people, and you don't look with people. And that's also something that creates humor. And that was a decision to, sometimes during his assignments, for example, that we look at the things we see a bit like we look at a stage, because they are staged. And yeah, apart from that, sometimes there are these slow push-ins to, you know, emotionally create something. These push-ins are very, very slow, so you might not see them, but you feel them. And in cases where it's more emotional, then we want it to be closer to the protagonists, of course. So yeah, I would say a lot of different things: films, photographs, and I already think very visual while I write. So it was actually very important to find all these locations. So the main house, for example, I had some ideas how this house should look. It should be, you know, clean, but also there should be some weirdness to it. And then we found this, you know, this step down into the house that is built into a small hill. But in the beginning, I started to go through architecture sites, architecture magazines, architecture photograph sites. And in the end, I had a list with 100 houses in and around Vienna. And I gave that list to production, and they contacted the owners. And in the end, we had 40 houses we were able to visit ourselves. And we did so, and then we narrowed it down to 8. And these 8 we again visited by day and night, because there's a lot of night shoots, a lot of night scenes. And then in the end, we decided for one of them. So yeah. Also, with showing Vienna in the film, I wanted to show some sites that are not that known in film already. Everybody knows the wonderful concert halls we have in Vienna from Haneke films and so on. And I thought, okay, it's interesting to show a modern concert hall here. And yeah.
Do you have more questions? Yes. We'll take one at the very back there and then move forward.
So firstly, fantastic film, incredibly thought-provoking, thank you. My question is there a certain irony or a contradiction in the fact that you're telling a story about the difference between being genuine or potentially putting on an act with actors who almost, by definition, are putting on an act? Or is there a way that you sort of reconcile that potential contradiction?
Yes, of course. I mean, there is you can always think of, you know, actors and actresses doing the same kind of, but like I said before, the big difference is that they are on stage or on set, and everybody knows that this is an act right now. I think what was interesting, Albrecht once said at the Q&A that as an actor, you learn how to really be that role, and you learn how to be that character. At acting schools, but you don't learn how to get rid of them again. And for example, Albrecht's way to do that, to not be Matthias, because it's, you know, he said, oh, it's going on my nerves to, you know, be this kind of person who does not do anything. And he always said, Matthias is entering a room and nothing changes because of him, and that's you know, very uncommon for a main character. And he found this way of going to a dance festival that was happening in Vienna while we shot the film. And he did so much, you know, physical movement, and by that he kind of had this chance to get rid of Matthias again.
Okay, a few more questions. Can we have the lady in the third row here?
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup for this interesting movie. When I saw your film, it has, I must say, I found it surreal. It reminded me of Louise Buñuel and the screenplays by Jean-Claude Carrière, leading to masterpieces like The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie or The Exterminating Angels, where people are suddenly in a room and they all behave strangely, strange things happen. You said you were feeling very Austrian. I just wondered, do you feel very European in that sense that you produced a film in the trend of European movies, which are, to my opinion, always very unpredictable. I'm thinking of Carlos Saura, I, Carmela, where the main protagonist is shot dead at the last image almost, and nobody expects that, for example. Or Godard, Jean-Luc Godard, who said, the audience do not understand my movie, but I don't care, ce n'est pas grave. So do you feel very European? Do you have ambition to work for Hollywood? What is your projects next? And please give us a memory of the filming, an anecdote. Thank you.
Big questions.
Yeah, a lot of questions also, so I try to remember all of them. But of course, Buñuel has been a huge inspiration to myself. And you could also name Jacques Tati for the visual humor I love to work with. And I mean, people have laughed about all the technical stuff in Jacques Tati's film back then, and we can still laugh about it now because it never works. So yes, I like I said, I don't feel that it's particularly Austrian. I do like to work more European or international even. I love to work with different languages also on a film, because I think it's also very narrow-minded when you know, people just speak one language in a film sometimes, because I'm meeting people in Vienna every day that speak English or another language, and you know, we converse in different languages. So I think it makes it more natural, and this kind of international approach to filmmaking is something I'm really, really interested in, yes. And about next projects, well, that's a huge question. There are, actually there's a series and there are 2 feature film ideas, and I cannot tell you too much about it yet, because these ideas are very much at the beginning, but we have that Austrian saying that the fingers itch because you want to start writing again, and that's what happens right now all the time. I really want to start again, and I can just tell you that I've done it in short films, and I've done it with this film. I've always loved to work around the topic of breakups, because I mean the big subjects of cinema are love and death, and these both subjects combined are breakups, and that's something many people can relate to, and I find very interesting.
Yes, the gentleman here and then one in the front.
I really loved your film, but my only question, and it's probably my lack of understanding, is the title. Because to me, a peacock is a very ego-centered person on displaying and wanting to be the center of attention. Why is it called Peacock?
That's of course one of the reasons why that is one way people know peacocks, a very proud animal. But on the other side, peacocks are constantly displaying themselves. You know, they love to show their feathers, and other male birds, for example, have great singing voices, but as you just heard, the peacock's voice is just horrible. Some other birds love to fly and are great at flying, and the peacock also isn't. So it's actually a bird and an animal that hasn't got much more besides presenting himself, and that's what I thought is interesting, because Matthias, there is not much behind, you know, just constantly showing himself and presenting, and that's why I thought, okay, Peacock is a good title for him.
We have the phrase here, kind of all mouth and no trousers, and maybe the peacock is all trousers and no mouth. The last question up the front here.
Thank you very much. We came as much for the Austrian German as we did for the film, but I love both of them, and we've enjoyed short things like Crooks, for example, recently, which you may know. There was a bit there in the filming and in the style that reminded me of American Gigolo from a long time ago.
I actually haven't seen that film.
Ah,
No.
okay. So it's an old film, but there's some similarities. But what I wanted to ask you was, apart from the references to the social media, so like at the start when he's sitting on the bed and there's the influencer who's been caught out, when he's with Sophia walking through the street and he intervenes in the fight, was that a setup or not, or is that something else you've left open?
No, I mean, these things, you know, which I leave open are normally, I would always say, I cannot answer that because that's why a director leaves it open. But in that case, it's definitely a setup. We see that guy before, you know, nearly choking, and he tells 2 times that he really, if he can do something for him, and he will do it, and that's why he got this guy. Yeah.
Oh, well, one more then.
I will also be outside, so I have no plans anymore tonight. So in case you have more questions.
Hi, Bernhard. Vielen Dank. Es war mega. I have a couple of questions slightly on the technical editing side, let's say. Obviously, as the writer, I don't know how much control you have over it. I love some of the J cuts, and I think often you try to cover it up in film and in video. You just kind of smoothly, whether it's the audio tracks or anything else that it might be. But I mean, it was obviously very intentional the way it quickly cuts, and you can really feel the way it transitions, whether it's the pause from the main actor or if it's the guy starts singing, it cuts straight away. I feel like it almost reminded me of Lion in the way that it stops and it goes from scene to scene, and it's not necessarily like it builds up to one specific moment, but it's almost like a catalogue of the life of the character. I was just curious what kind of impacts you're allowed to have on then the post-production, and if you can say what kind of feel you want it to have, because obviously it depends a lot. You can create a different feel in post, but it might contrast to what you initially thought. So I was just curious on what your involvement is with that.
Well, thankfully, when you do cinema, you really have all the impact at the editing as well, and you can make all decisions in the end. So, you know, I've been working with the same editor for every project I've ever done. He's one of my eldest friends, and we grew up together, and we started making films. And he started to edit the film while we were still shooting. But still, we changed a lot through the editing process then, and actually about these jump cuts, for example, many of them already were in the script, because the humor I love to work with is subtle, bizarre, odd, and also very visual. And you can create that on many layers, and you know, through different departments. And there is the cinematography, there is art design, there is costumes, and there is editing, how you can create that kind of humor. And as I said, it was written sometimes to jump into a scene or to jump out of a scene suddenly. And yeah, sometimes we just decided, okay, it would be nice to do that again here, even though it wasn't in the script, but yeah.
I think it was awesome because I had that very, very real feel, because I think the kind of extra SFX was used quite sparingly, maybe like the drones and the risers when you're walking around the house, but the rest, I didn't notice initially. I'm sure there are tons of tracks in the edit, which I obviously can't see right now, but no, I very, very much enjoyed it, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
I love that your film has given us so many questions. I love that it doesn't answer all of those questions quite so neatly, but as you said, you will be in the lobby afterwards if anyone still has a burning query for you. Bernhard, thank you so much for sharing your film with us tonight.
Thank you very much for this wonderful conversation, and thank you to all of you for coming tonight and for staying for the Q&A. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.